What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, breaking down my final thoughts for Week 7 of the NFL season for DraftKings and FanDuel. If you want a more position-by-position style breakdown, you can check out the video I posted on Wednesday. But today, we'll be going game by game, breaking it all down, talking cash games, tournaments, stacks, and of course, run the optimizer at the end to see which players are popping. So if that all sounds fine and dandy to you, do me a favor, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe channel for brand new. Let's dive right into it. And really quick, if you look what you see on the screen behind me, there's a lot more available on my website, cpendfs.com. Projections, stacks, all the data you want, and I do cover the flagship showdown slates and the main slate each and every single week. So if you want to come in and check it out, you can just link down in the description or the pinned comment, and also the first week is free. All right, so let's go game by game here, break it all down. I'm not going to go in depth on every single player or every single game. One, that's boring. Two, you don't want to listen to it, and I don't want to make the video. It'd be an hour long, and that just wastes your guys' time. So we're going to keep things short, sweet, and simple. We'll talk about the games that we like. We'll talk about the players that I do have interest in. Before we do that and go a little bit more in depth, let's just look at the slate as a whole. So we have the NFL stack sheet here. I'm going to just make this DraftKings, and of course we have the implied team totals. I mean, these are the teams that we're probably going to be getting the most of, because the higher your implied team total, the more chances you're going to have to score typically. So we want players from those games. But I like looking at the table here, and I'm going to look at the what cheap teams have high implied team totals, because we like to find teams in this upper left quadrant, and I'm only seeing one this week, and that is not usually the case. The Denver Broncos are the lone wolf in that one, but a lot of the teams I do like are kind of right here, and of course I do like the Chiefs, and I like the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are so far on the right that you can't even see them, but of course they project amazing this week. With all the injuries on Washington, we might even have Deebo Samuel when we talk about them. That could be a very cheap stacking options that we have with Jaden Daniels. So even though he's an expensive quarterback, the rest of the team isn't really that expensive. So I thought it was just a little bit interesting this week. And of course, this is going to make it a little bit different, but everyone's going to want players from those teams. The Chiefs are so far on the right, you can't see them either. But I always just think it's kind of fun to take a glance at this. And of course, there's other things on there as well. Let's go game by game here. The first one up is New Orleans Saints on the road in Chicago. We do have kind of two weather spots this week, and I am not one to really overreact or care to weather. Some people, they see some sprinkles and they're like, oh, we can't play the passing game. These guys are professionals. It typically does not, precipitation does not affect scoring too much. What does affect things more than pretty much anything else is when there is high winds. And we have two win games. We actually back to back here. We have Chicago and New Orleans, and then we have Cleveland and Miami, two Midwestern cities. And that is going to hurt things a little bit. Now, I did see that it's a little bit less windy in the Windy City here for the Bears, and it can hurt downfield passes. I mean, everything else should still be fine. Of course, field goals as well. But that's not going to take me off the Chicago Bears here. I like these price points. I like the spot versus New Orleans. Decently healthy total here at 46.5, 4.5 point spread. And the Bears do still have one of the higher implied team totals at 26.5. And Vegas is aware of the weather and the elements, and they're not that concerned about it. So I'm not going to be either. I think Caleb Williams is one of the better point per dollar quarterbacks on the entire slate. I actually do think he projects as that at 19.6 points, sub 6K. He can run the ball a little bit. He's got great weapons to get the ball to, and Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, who we did get notice that he will be playing this week, is not going to go into Sunday with any designation. I know we have the overnight hospital stay, but I guess that's nothing to be worried about. Outside of that, that's kind of all I like. DeAndre Swift, of course, if he's good to go. I know he is still currently questionable if you want to run it back. Versus that Bears defense, Chris Olave, I think, makes the most sense. If it is going to be high winds, I would say that probably does hurt Shaheed, as he is the deep threat. And if that's going to be hurting at all from Spencer Rattler, who's obviously not the best quarterback at all, I think Chris Olave is probably our main target if you are trying to run back and do a full game stack. And then we have Cleveland and Miami. And I'll be honest, I pretty much just like two spots in this game. Now, weather-wise, first off, I could have swore the total was at 39.5 when it opened, maybe 40. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I feel like it has dropped a couple of points. I did see a report, though, that we could see up to 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. I would say that's probably on the extreme high side of models. I've seen a lot of other places talk 30, 40 potential for gusts with sustained winds around 20-ish. But that's enough to definitely be concerned. But, I mean, who really wanted to play the passing game in this one anyway? Cleveland defense is good enough to where you really don't want to play Tua, especially on the road. There's no Tyreek Hill. I mean, you're talking Jalen Waddle, Blake Washington. I mean, it gets pretty nasty pretty quick. If you're going to play anybody on Miami, it's a Chan just because of the checkdowns. And if it's going to be some major high winds, I mean, maybe even more checkdowns to a Chan. But this is a good enough defense to where, like I said, I don't really want to attack it. So that leaves us with two spots. And I like Quinshon Judkins. If it's going to be high wins. This is a great spot versus Miami, just to give him the ball 20 times on the ground, just pound the rock, establish the run, hopefully gets into the end zone at 6K. He's probably one of the best running back plays on the entire slate. They've been getting shredded on the ground this year, and we just saw it the previous 2 weeks. Rico Dowdle, over 200 total yards, and then Vito last week had a really good game too. And there's no David Njoku this week. Both guys have been serviceable, and both guys have been highly involved in the offense. We have not seen a game yet with one of them being out. This will be our first time. You have to assume it's going to be a nice jump here for Fannin. He's below 4K. I am predicting for 11.4 points, whether that's on the high side or the low side. That'll yet to be determined, but he's a talented tight end, and I don't really think they're going to be able to chuck the ball deep. So I think Fannin's in an excellent spot here versus Miami. Then we have the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to be in Arrowhead, and of course the Chiefs are major favorites, 11.5 points to be exact. 29.5 implied team total. We're not going to have Bronk Bowers yet again. And I'll be honest, I really don't want to play anybody on the Raiders. Even when I do stack the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't think I have to run it back with anybody. If you're going to, I mean, honestly, just take your pick. I really don't think there's one that's way better than the other. Maybe Michael Mayer, just because of the price point. I don't know. I don't really like it. But I do like the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, he's a quarterback you can play naked just because we have so many options now. Rashee Rice is back. We have Xavier Worthy healthy, Hollywood Brown's here, Juju, the list goes on, Tyquan Thornton, Travis Kelce. It's going to be hard week to week to know who to stack with Patrick Mahomes. Now, this is Rashee Rice's first game back. I think typically we're going to know that he's our wide receiver one. We saw that in a smaller sample size last year. I currently have him projected really well. I think they asked Andy Reid if he's going to be on a pitch count or something, and he said to ask Jeremy Fowler, I believe. I'm sure he'll know. Just classic Andy Reid stuff. So you never know. Maybe he's limited in some capacity, but even then, when he's on the field, it's going to be impactful and meaningful, and it's not like he's coming off an injury anyway. So his potential projection, which it's kind of hard to gauge for this week, so take it with a grain of salt. At $5,600 on DraftKings, I think you almost have to play that. I mean, not necessarily. They are huge favorites, so if they get up in the second half and you didn't do much in the first half, they don't really have to burn them anyway. But I do like them a lot at that price point, but you can certainly play Patrick Mahomes naked. That's perfectly fine if you want to go that route. And when I recorded the video on Tuesday with Rashee Rice, FanDuel did not have him in the player pool, but they added him and he's $7,500. So if you're going to play him this week, do it on DraftKings. FanDuel's at a major price disadvantage over there. I would say there's probably 2 to 3 cash game QBs this week, and Mahomes is definitely in that top 3 for sure. Then we have Philly on the road in Minnesota. Did get news that Carson Wentz is going to be starting once again. No Aaron Jones. I would say Carson Wentz starting is just pretty much a bump for all the pass catching options in Minnesota. So Justin Jefferson, I believe his projection actually went up 2 points when I did slot in Carson Wentz, just to give you guys a reference. I couldn't tell you the exact numbers on Addison, Naylor, and Thielen, but of course, Justin Jefferson is the main target here. TJ Hawkinson is fine, but I don't really like this game for DFS purposes. I'm not going to play Jalen Hurts. I respect the Vikings defense enough. I'm not playing Saquon, not playing any of the pass catching options, which is crazy. I mean, A.J. Brown's sub 6K, and I really just don't have much interest there. So it's not the worst game in the world. 1.5 point spread. It's in the dome, 43.5 point over under, but I just don't really have much interest here. Carolina Panthers and the New York Jets. So unfortunately, not unfortunate for Chuba Hubbard. He's going to have to try to get his role back completely, but he is going to be back. So it's no longer just the Rico Dowdle gets 400 yards kind of contest this week. So we'll have to see what the split ends up being. They did say they know internally, but externally, I guess we don't know. And I am external, so it's a shot in the dark there. But I really don't like this game. Who I do like is the Carolina Panthers defense. At their price point, I think $2,500. Going to be the top defense of the week, and I would assume they're going to be the highest zone, which is what I have projected, and they do sim as the most optimal. And not to forget Breece Hall. I do like Breece Hall at that price point at $6,300. No Garrett Wilson, so we pretty much just out the entire passing offense. Mason Taylor should get a slight bump. As you can see, projected 9.7 at $3,400. That is not bad at all. And the Panthers have been bad versus tight ends. So Mason Taylor, a shot in the dark, sure. Outside of that, I do like Breece Hall just because might get some more checkdowns. There's just, you can't really trust Josh Reynolds, Arian Smith, Alan Lazard, who I believe is still questionable, and Tyler Johnson as your main wide receivers going into a game. So I assume it's just going to be a heavy dose of Hall. Probably get some Mason Taylor checkdowns, but for me, Panthers defense does look pretty solid in this one. They have the New England Patriots on the road in Tennessee. Kind of another ugly game here. 42.5 point over under, 7 point spread in the Patriots' favor. I like Dre May. I don't really like anything else in this one. Of course, Stephon Diggs is always going to be an option at $5,600. I feel like the running backs are basically unplayable. Just good luck guessing that one. And Travion Henderson does not get the touches he probably deserves. So if you're going to sack with May, it's Stephon Diggs, it's Hunter Henry's the main options. Kayshon Boutte, I think, won someone $1 million last week. You never know. One of these guys can go off. Pop Douglas. Maybe Matt Collins catches a long touchdown. I don't know. You don't know either, so don't act like you do. Just whatever happens will be the thing that ends up happening. And I'm going to pass on all of the Titans here. If you're going to play anybody, A.O. Manor, at $4,200, you can do it if they're trailing and you are going with that Patriots stack. But that's really about it. This is not a great DFS game, but Drake May does project as one of the better point per dollar options at the quarterback position. I'll give you that, but stacking options can be a bit murky. Then we have the Giants on the road in Denver. Now, Denver, it was the lone team that was in that left quadrant, but I'll be honest, I just don't really like it. I don't like any of the options here. I don't like anybody on the Giants. The implied team total for Denver is good. Might get some J.K. Dobbins, might get him into the end zone. He's not the worst running back play, but you still have R.J. Harvey looming. He's going to get more involved as well. But Sutton, Troy Franklin, if you are playing Bo Nix, those are your options, but I just can't really see myself playing pretty much anybody in this game. Jackson Dart's still cheap, but on the road in Mile High, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a game I want to target with a 39.5 point over-under. This one definitely looks a lot more appealing. We have the Colts on the road in LA, 1.5 point spread, 25.5 total for the Chargers, 24.5 for the Indianapolis Colts. A lot more fun options here. Probably one of the better games to target. I feel like I didn't talk about them enough on my early week video, so we'll kind of make up for it here. I think lots of good options here. I did see Hassan Haskins is currently questionable, but Vital is definitely the guy that I would rather have at $5,500. I think he'd definitely be a solid option if he was there by himself, but I was assuming Haskins would play. Quentin Johnston missed last week, which kind of opened the door for Ladd McConkey to finally have a breakout game. 100 yards, got into the end zone, was nice to see. Keenan Allen busted, still had targets, but just wasn't a good performance, which sucked because I was very high on Keenan after we had that QJ news. But if you are playing Herbert, obviously two of his pass catching options are always going to be viable. And there is an error here. I actually have Gadsden as the tight end one, but for some reason he's not populating. But just know Gadsden does project the best there, not Will Dissly and not Tyler Conklin over him, if you're wondering why. I have it in that order, but Gadsden does project the best, and I'll have to fix that. But any of his two pass catching options with him is perfectly fine if you want to run it back. We do have a couple of injuries for the Colts at the wide receiver position. Doolin is going to be out, and so is Josh Downs. So a bit of a bump for Mitchell. Hopefully it doesn't fumble the ball on the 1 yard line again. And then Alec Pierce is going to be back and good to go too. But Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, those are always going to be your main pass catching options for Daniel Jones. And then Jonathan Taylor has been an absolute beast on the ground. The only issue is, can you afford him? Nearly $9,000 on DraftKings, $10,000 on FanDuel. I feel like you're probably not going to be able to afford him. And while guys like Judkins, guys like Breece Hall don't have the typical medium projection that Jonathan Taylor would at their price points, I feel like they're the better route to go to open the door for more better possibilities in our lineup. So we got the Packers on the road in Arizona, 44.5 point over under, kind of a weird game for me. Like, I like Josh Jacobs, 26.5 implied team total. The Cardinals have been bottom half in the league versus running backs this year. We know he's going to get heavy volume. I got him projected for 20 points, sub 8K, which that projection is very similar to Jonathan Taylor, and I can save $1,000. I can save $100 on FanDuel. That's one of those reasons where I'm like, I'm probably not getting that much Jonathan Taylor this week. Great play, projection-wise, yes, but salary-wise, maybe not the easiest thing to get to. Packers are a carousel wide receiver. Obviously, Tucker Kraft's going to get his, but good luck picking your stacking options with Jordan Love. So for me, it's basically Josh Jacobs, and that's really kind of all I like from this game. Good potential game script, decent matchup, good volume. What more can you really ask for besides being at home? Arizona, Kyler Murray's going to be back this week. Marvin Harrison did clear concussion protocol. Demercado is going to be out, so it'll be the illustrious Michael Carter and Bam Knight show at RB1 and RB2, so that'll be exciting. Trey McBride, $5,700. I'd rather just take the value on guys like Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin, probably even Tyler Warren. We haven't talked about Zach Ertz and Jake Ferguson yet, who's going to be next. So for me, it's kind of just a Josh Jacobs or bust game, which I guess makes things pretty easy and simple there. Now we have the game of the week, 54.5 point over under, but lots of injuries on the red side of things. Let me do some more injury news on the blue side of things as well. But 1.5 point spread, 54.5 point over under. We're in the Jerry Dome. Points are going to be scored in this one. The Dallas defense has been a revolving door to pretty much all positions this year. So take your picks on Washington. The problem is we just don't know who is going to be playing right now. It's going to be a bit of a guessing game. So we have Jaden Daniels. He's going to be projecting as the QB1 basically everywhere this week. He's got rushing upside. The matchup versus the Cowboys, they've been bleeding points versus quarterbacks. There's nothing not to like from Jaden. The only issue is that his pass catching options are going to be bottom of the totem pool this week, but that probably won't matter too much. So Deebo Samuel is very questionable for this game. He might not play, and if he does not play, that means we have Luke McCaffrey, Chris Moore, Jalen Lane, and then it's going to get real bare bones after that. So I currently have Deebo in now. I feel like that projection might be a little bit high. It might need tamed down. It might be just giving him too much love as the wide receiver one in that offense, because he's not like a typical wide receiver one. So that might end up blending down a little bit. But if he was good to go, fully healthy, and we're not going to have limitations, the $6,200, obviously I think he'd be a really good play. It's a good matchup versus Dallas, and Jaden's got to throw the ball to somebody. If he happens to be out, you have LMC there, Chris Moore, and we already talked about them. Zach Ertz, I feel like it's a fairly safe option. I do think Harold Fannin might be the better option, but if you are game stacking this one, Zach Ertz makes it very easy to get to. It's $300, and he's just all reliable for Jaden Daniels in an offense. He'll be a red zone target. I mean, no reason really not to like Zach Ertz. Good matchup versus Dallas. I saw Mason Taylor have a really good game versus them a couple weeks ago. And if you don't go the Washington side of things, we have Dallas with endless options here. Dak Prescott, $6,500. He has been incredible. And he gets his new shiny toy back in CeeDee Lamb, who projects as the wide receiver one this week. But have fun trying to fit all these guys together. You're definitely going to have to go cheaper at running back, because Dak Prescott, $65. Lamb, $75. George Pickens, priced like CeeDee Lamb, is out at $7,300. And then Jake Ferguson, not too bad at $5,500, but definitely on the higher end of tight ends. But everybody should eat here. We do have Turpin questionable currently, but we'll have to wait and see on that situation. If you don't go with the passing attack in this game, obviously Bill at $6,100, a good matchup versus Dallas, and Javonte Williams down week last week, but the volume will still be there. High implied team totals. I basically like everybody in this game, so stack it up any way you like. I have no issue with that. But I would say right now, Jaden Daniels looks like the cash game QB if you can spend up, and if not, I am kind of leaning towards Caleb Williams as of right now. But you can't go wrong with Mahomes. You can't go wrong with Jaden Daniels. But if you want to spend down, I do think Caleb might be our best option. But yeah, everyone looks good in this one. Tournaments, cash games, you name it. We'll have to wait and see on the news for Deebo Samuel, though, which is definitely going to potentially change some things. And as promised, we're going on the optimizer here to see which players are popping. Of course, my projections are not going to be the same as everybody else in the industry. And we still have some injury news to sift through, so please don't let this be the end-all be-all. But very simple stack settings here. We're on 25% randomness. We're on 50. Max salary at 50. Not going to change individual max player ownership exclusion for individual basis or the entire lineup. We're going to run two stacking options, one bring back minimum. Now, if I was actually building, I'm going to do specific stacks. I'm going to put team specific overrides to where if I get Justin Fields in my lineup, I'm not going to force a stacking option, because why would I want to do that? Justin Fields is fine naked. He can get there by himself. So let's run with 50 here. And then I'll run it without stacking options and see how much of a difference it actually does make. But going down to the builds here, let's head over to quarterback first and see how that is looking. Actually, I kind of want to see the team exposure coming in. A lot of Dallas, a lot of Washington. That should be no surprise of anybody. I don't think that's really going to change. A lot of Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs, Patriots and Colts are kind of dancing around here, but yeah, that makes sense for the highest. Cleveland's probably basically all Judkins and Fannin, I would have to imagine. And I do see we got a triple stack mixed in there, which usually does not happen. I'm curious to see who that is. But looking at our quarterbacks, we're almost done with the 150. Jaden Daniels coming in a ton, which he's projected a lot more than the other quarterbacks, so it should be no surprise of anybody. Now, Jaden Daniels is not somebody on a main slate where I would force double stacks in, so we're going to see probably a lot of Luke McCaffrey or a Chris Moore. Deebo Samuel is Zach Ertz because it's forcing that. He's someone I think he's fine with the single stack option. You could even play him naked, like in cash games. If you don't want to play pass catcher with Jaden Daniels, that's perfectly fine. But Daniel Jones in that higher implied team total game, or higher over under, I should say. Drake May, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, a little bit lower than I thought. Maybe it doesn't like the double stacks with him. Bo Nix, running backs. Josh Jacobs up top, Breece Hall, Judkins, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift. Chain a little bit higher, Vital. Jonathan Taylor coming in roughly around 15% of the time, kind of where I expected him to be. Yeah, Deebo Samuel, we don't know if he's going to play or not, so no idea. That could obviously change things big time. Rashee Rice, not surprised to see him up there. CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs. I mean, if all these guys are healthy and good to go, kind of like my three favorite wide receivers as of right now. Stephon Diggs just getting jammed in with Drake May, Luke McCaffrey, Robinson. Looks like Darius Slayton's going to be questionable again. Huge game versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Sutton, there's Chris Moore. There's the all the Chargers wide receivers, Keenan, Johnson, and Lamb McConkey, not too far behind each other. Tight end with all Jaden Daniels. Of course, we're going to see a lot of Zach Ertz, Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin, not as high, but since this is the stack build, I feel like when we take away stacks, he might end up being a little bit higher there. And the defense is probably going to be Panthers and Panthers at the very top, Patriots second. That does not surprise me in the slightest. But let's take off the stack settings here, and I feel like it's going to be a little bit different. Might even get more Jaden Daniels, but you might see a little bit more, maybe like a Caleb Williams showing up potentially if you didn't like all the stacking. Yeah, looks like Caleb Williams coming a little bit higher, but still a smaller sample size in this pool, so it could still fall. But we're roughly about halfway done with the build. Looks like he's coming in as the second highest exposed quarterback there. Jaden Daniels still far and away the leader. Drake May, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's honestly like my quarterback pool. You could sneak in Justin Herbert if you want over Jalen Hurts, but yeah, these guys right here are the ones that I am really on. Running back shouldn't really change because that doesn't affect the stacks much. Judkins a little bit higher in this run. Jacobs fell a little bit. Rashee Rice, Wan'Dale Robinson very high. Deebo Samuel, Stephon. I probably should have talked about Wan'Dale. Honestly, he kind of skipped over. He does project a little bit better than I thought he did for me, but at this price point, it looks like he should at least be viable for sure. Stephon Diggs, McConkey, Sutton, Lamb a little bit lower. Van Jefferson a little bit high there. We'll have to check his projection there, make sure anything isn't too funky in that one. Might have to blend a little bit more as the weekend progresses. Tight end, Zach Ertz still at the top. Fannin did end up getting jumped in more. Mason, the guys with terrible quarterbacks, well, they get bumped up a little bit. We're not forcing stacks. Tyler Warren, Trey McBride. Yeah, that's not a surprise. I could maybe see with Jefferson getting more love, maybe just because of the fact that Calvin Ridley is out, but have to see on that. And then defense shouldn't change at all. And of course, you have the lineup cards down here, but I'm not going to go over 150 of those, obviously. But with that being said, that's all for today's video. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, or even if you didn't, make sure you leave a like down below. Scott Champ for brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.